Welcome to Ask Hmong, a hybrid event hosted by the Michigan State University School of Journalism and the Bias Busters program. People are participating in person here and through Zoom. We are going to collect questions on cards distributed in the auditorium and submitted through Zoom, and some we've already gathered from the Hmong community, and get some answers to some of these questions many people have about the Hmong community. We plan to use these questions with answers in a new book we are publishing called 100 Questions and Answers About Hmong Americans, Secret No More. The number one rule here is that there are no dumb questions. If you don't know exactly how to ask something, that's going to be okay. The important thing is to ask. This space is meant to be a safe space. We want to be informed and we want to learn. The event is organized by the Bias Busters series and the School of Journalism, and it has a number of allies. First, I'd like to introduce our panelists, Julie Xiong and Joseph Fang. Joseph will be succeeded midway through the program by Tyler Lee. We want to thank some of our allies for this program. They include the Hmong Family Association of Lansing, the Hmong American Community of Lansing, Michigan State University's Hmong American Student Association, the Historical Society of Greater Lansing, the Interfaith Leadership Council of Metropolitan Detroit, and Front Edge Publishing and Read the Spirit. With that, let's get started. I know we already have some questions to get us going. Who's going first?
All right, it's up to you, Tyler. Truly an honor to be here with everybody tonight to talk a little bit about, the Hmong and our heritage here. So look forward to the dialogue.
All right, let's start this off by asking, where do Hmong people originate from?
All right, so Hmong people originated from what's currently southern China. We are an ethnic minority that lived in southern China, what is today southern China, due to the kind of the empires and the Chinese history of kind of ruling and trying to assimilate the people in China. Our people decided not to assimilate and move further and further south, ending up in the northern parts of Laos, Thailand, Burma. And so that's where we originate from, is what's today is southern China. So there are still lots of Hmong people that still live in southern China, but we are the few that crossed the border and went to the other countries.
Next question is, if the Hmong originated in China, are they Chinese?
So I would say technically those that are Hmong that still live in China are considered that, right? But they are an ethnic minority within China.
All right, next question is, do Hmong people have a country?
So we don't have a country that we call our own. I like to use the term, we are a minority among minorities. We don't have a country that's our own. And so we carry our country on our back, we carry our culture on our backs, and we don't have a country of origin that we can go back to learn our language, our culture, our religion, and so we do not technically have our own country. So,
next question, is there a Hmong language?
So yes, there is a Hmong language and many different dialects associated with the Hmong language. As far as a written language, though, it just recently occurred after I would say the Secret War of Laos, when we did have, the U.S. come over, right, use the alphabet to create that language for us. In the past, in history, we didn't have we actually our written language is embroidered in our clothing. Right, and so you'll see like different symbols that mean different things in our clothing. And I think Joseph has some clothing that he has on right now that he can kind of talk about it as well.
So I guess before let me tell a quick folktale about our written language. Okay, I'll be quick. So the story is the Hmong kings had a book that was our written language, and they moved it from one kingdom to the next, and they hired a young boy to take it from one kingdom to the next, and he had a cow with him. Well, he fell asleep under a tree, and the cow ate the book. And so that's why we no longer have a written language. So if anybody knows about the anatomy of a cow has 3 stomachs, and one of those opens like a book. And coincidentally, butchers call it a butcher's Bible, and it actually opens up like a book. So the tripe that you eat at Asian restaurants that kind of look flaky, that is our book. So you're eating the Hmong book. So, so that quick little story. But yeah, so you might be wondering, it's not Christmas, no, but this is our traditional clothing. The coins in our culture, you wear your wealth. So originally these coins were made of high concentration of silver in the 90 percentile. These are replicas, but the French Indochina that came, they use that as a source of currency, and our people started wearing them, and we have different types of jewelry made out of silver, and silver is one of the main metals that our culture wears, gold as well, but silver is more dominant than gold. So yeah, it's a little loud, but it's fun. So yeah.
How many Hmong clans are there?
Count is 18.
So there's 18 officially, but there are actually some smaller ones. I think if you count the smaller ones, it's about 20, but officially it's 18 clans because some of them are subsets of the larger ones. And so we officially say there are 18 clans in the last names. So some of the larger clan names are Yang, such as mine, Vang, Li, Vu. Those are some of the larger clans. Some of the smaller ones are last name Kong, probably Pa. They're smaller clans, but there's 18 officially. There's 18 clans.
So I'm from the Xiong clan, and my husband's from the Vang clan. So two separate clans, and then we come together and get married.
All right. What are some traditional Hmong beliefs?
Family, everything in regards to the Hmong culture, I'd say it's grounded in our values around family, right? Elders, right? Extremely important. We believe that our ancestors guide our way, and therefore we truly respect them. And even though they're gone, we still remember them. Right? They're kind of like the angels that guide us, if that makes sense. Every decision, we kind of pray over it, make sure that, they're there to support us as we move through life, right? So I would say family. What else, Joseph? What do you think?
What was the question again?
Some traditional Hmong rituals or beliefs,
Hmong
customs?
traditions. So my religion, I still practice the old religion, the animist / shamanism, and the way I look at it is our culture and religion is very intertwined with each other. You really can't have one without the other if you practice the traditional religion. So we I guess worship, for lack of a better word, we worship our ancestors. We give offerings to them. We pray to them, and through that connection of family, it boils over to our everyday life as well. And family is very important to us. And so everything centers around family, around food. Every event has to have some type of food, and so that is a big part of our culture. So.
Food is extremely important, and good food. Okay. I'm terrible cook, so they don't like to invite me.
All right, speaking of food, what does this traditional Hmong diet consist of?
Rice is like number one. So for my family, right? Obviously, everybody has different preferences, but I know rice is a huge thing for our family.
Yeah, so rice is the main staple. I mean, rice can be a meal in its own in our culture. We just eat a bowl of rice with water and salt or water and sugar, and that's a meal. So growing up, that would be a meal. That's kind of the cereal, if you would say, like the quick meal that you don't need to cook, you don't need to do anything, just grab meal, grab rice, throw it into water, salt or sugar, and off you go. And that's your quick and dirty meal. But yeah.
With some ginger on the side. Or pepper. Pepper is also, I would say, something that if you go to any Hmong house, you'll find chili pepper.
Speaking of, is Hmong food spicy?
I would say it depends, right? It's kind of blah, actually. Majority of the food, it's kind of blah, very natural. A lot of boiled stuff, food, greens, and meat and so forth. But spice on the side, I would say. Right?
Yeah, our people traditionally came from the mountainous regions, and so everything was pretty much boiled. So you got boiled potatoes, boiled yams, boiled pork, boiled chicken, boiled vegetables. Like pretty much everything is boiled in our culture. And so as we started moving towards kind of Thailand and Laos and learning some of their cultural dishes and how they eat, then our menus have changed a little bit. But if you want to eat traditional Hmong food, it's gonna be just salt and water, pretty much, if you want to eat traditional Hmong food. So,
What are some traditional Hmong marriage customs?
Okay, that's a good one. So we do have a dowry associated with marriage for those that still practice that, right? Dowry, I think the normal dowry right now in the United States is what, $5,000, right? Truly is I would say the dowry is really a respect towards the family, right? Between the marriage, right? That commitment from the groom to the bride's family that they would take care of the bride, right? And thank you for the bride's parents for essentially raising them all these years, right? And in exchange for the dowry and through their wedding and so forth, there's an exchange from the parents and their family as well. Lots of gifts, lots of money that surpasses, I would say, the dowry that's given by the groom to the bride. So what other traditions?
yeah, so I mean, wedding traditions, traditionally that dowry or bride price is meant to replace the lost labor that if you marry their daughter who was helps garden, help clean around the house, you marry her. And in our culture, when you marry somebody, they come live with the groom. You no longer live with the bride's family anymore. And so traditionally that dowry is meant to help replace that kind of lost labor there, because our culture was a farm slash and burn type of agricultural society until the Vietnam War happened. And so that's kind of what that was there for. But we have negotiators from both sides of the family that negotiate the dowry price. If there's any issues or penalties that need to be talked about, and so it's a whole ceremony that can take 2 days to do. And so the wedding ceremony, the traditional wedding ceremony, is very intricate and has a lot of different steps for it. So. Yeah.
Are Hmong marriages arranged? And if so, does it still occur today?
That's a good question too. I would say current date here in the U.S. There's not much arranged marriages, right? It follows pretty much the American culture. But if a groom does want to marry a bride, per se, and out of respect, they can go and essentially, commit to the bride's parents that they want to be engaged to their daughter. Right, so there is that level, but I would say in the current state, there's not much arranged at all here in the U.S.
Yeah, I would agree as well. The U.S., not a lot of arranged marriages happen in the U.S. In tradition, our culture, bride kidnapping was allowable. Like you would walk down the street and you see somebody you like, and now that's your wife. Like that's literally how people used to get married. So bride kidnapping, and in different parts of Laos, Thailand, that still kind of happens. In the U.S., it's kind of frowned upon, and there are laws against that. So it doesn't really happen here in the U.S., or neither does arranged marriages. I've not seen one since probably 20 or so years now. So, yeah.
What are some traditional Hmong instruments?
There's several different types of flutes, and I wish there were some pictures here we could show you, but there's kind of like guitar type instruments as well, flutes with different, I don't know, music. You can tell I'm not a music person, but with different tones and so forth. But yeah, there's several flutes and guitar type instruments, I think.
Yeah, so probably our most well-known one is, you pronounce it keng. Dakeng, which is it's a flute made out of bamboo, and it's a curved flute with a extended mouthpiece, and it's spelled Qeej is how you spell that. It's probably our most well-known instrument that is associated with us. We also have just a single bamboo flute that we use as well. We have something similar to, it's called the Jewish harp, where it's like a mouthpiece that you kind of flick and it makes a noise and you can sing songs with it. And the English name of it is a Jewish harp. And so we do have some traditional flutes and instruments as well. So.
And that kang is very important to our culture. You know, my dad used to tell me that if you were going to go back to China, right, that area there, and look for the different ethnic groups, because there's several different ethnic groups up in the region of China, and you want to find like the people that are, I would say, Hmong, right, traditional Hmong, they'll have to essentially be ones where they use that kang as well, because that kang is used in our marriages and funerals and celebrations, etc. And if they don't use that particular type, they're probably not from our ethnic group, right? So that, along with, I think, the necklace, those are the two, I would say, if we're going to go to ancestry.com and trace our roots back, right, and find people, those are the two things that my parents told me that you have to find. They have to have that in their culture and their identity. Otherwise, they're probably not from our ethnic group.
What are some traditional Hmong funeral customs, and what role does the king play in that?
All right, go ahead.
So, traditional Hmong customs, the king is the role of the king is to actually speak to the deceased. There's one of the very first ceremonies, the king actually sends the deceased into the afterlife. And so that's a very important ceremony for that. In addition to that, during funerals, we have a drum. Some clans can use a drum that has been pre-made, kind of similar to like a Japanese drum or a Chinese drum. But some clans can, such as my clan. We're not allowed to use a pre-made drum. We make one as we go, and then we destroy it afterwards. It's just a belief that drum. It's only used for death. We don't use drums for music, for any other festivities or anything like that in our culture. We only use it during funerals. And so our clan has decided that they don't want to use it, a permanent one. So we make a temporary one, we use it for the funeral, and then we destroy it afterwards. And so there is a person, his title is Jia. He's pretty much in charge of making sure that all the offerings are provided to the person that's deceased, and he's one of the most important people in that funeral. So,
what are some Hmong holiday celebrations?
The New Year celebration is by far probably the biggest holiday, and probably one of the very few holidays that we celebrate, along with the harvest, right? So at the end of the year, all that hard work, right? After you finish the harvest and so forth, you celebrate with friends and family, and you have those traditional meals to do that, along with, the New Year celebration, where people find their mates, right, their spouses and so forth, their traditional ball tossing and getting to know each other and singing and so forth. So the New Year celebration is probably the biggest event that we have in our community.
Yeah, so publicly dating in PDA is a no-no in our traditional. In the U.S. it's a little bit different, but where in my parents' generation, the only time you really actually courted somebody publicly was at the New Year celebration. That's it. Other than that, it would have to be private courting, and nobody really knew who was dating who until the New Year came around. And so that the New Year is a very important part of the celebration, and of the year celebration, as well as the harvest celebration, which is the literal translation is eat 30 of our harvest celebration. And so it's celebrating the last day of the year, which we have a lunar calendar, so the 30th of the year. So,
can you two explain the difference between the green Hmong and the white Hmong, and how different or similar they are?
So I am white Hmong, so I can't really talk about green Hmong. But there's quite a few different, I would say, beliefs, right, and traditions and culture associated with each group. And it's actually a different dialect as well, right? And I can't really understand that language myself. I know that. So
Yeah, so the Green Hmong and the White Hmong are the two major dialects. There are some smaller subsets as well, but those are the two major language dialects. And I'm White Hmong as well. Green Hmong, their dialect is much more similar to, I would say, Mandarin than our dialect. Their dialect flows a little bit more. Ours is very choppy. There's a lot of consonants in our dialect, and I can understand most of it, but not all of it either. And some of our words do overlap, but there are some words that mean totally different things. But the clothing is different as well. So the white Hmong, the women wear actually a white dress, a white skirt, and the green Hmong, they wear a very green. It's a green and red patterned, very bright patterned dress, and that's how you can traditionally tell what dialect, or if they're white Hmong or green Hmong. The white Hmong men wear kind of Western style pants. The green Hmong, they wear kind of MC Hammer style pants where the crotch is almost to the ground, and so you can quickly identify what dialect and what clan they are by that. So
What is Hmong Pandao or story cloth?
So Hmong Bandao, I would say, is really, it goes back to, sewing our symbols and things that are important in our culture into our dress, right? So you'll notice, like in Joseph's tie here, right? I think that's the elephant print. Is that what that is? The symbol? Is that on your tie?
no, this is
Is that
that's just the maze.
the maze?
Yeah.
Okay. And so there's different patterns, right? And this is bandoa bandoa is just that, right? It's embroidered patterns that people sew, and it takes a long time. It really does. It's very, very detailed oriented, and it takes a long time. Nowadays, there is, I would say, prints that we use right now as well. We've caught up with them sometimes, the times to do that. But yeah, so this is like a sample of bando.
Yeah, so bando is just kind of our traditional designs of our clothing, but the story cloths actually didn't start until the refugee camps, because our people, though we do have a written language that's fairly new, a lot of the people didn't know how to write in that language, and so they told their stories by sewing their story cloths. And one of the things that is interesting is a lot of people had story cloths that had like yellow rain coming from the sky, and the whole Agent Orange thing, if it was a myth, if it was real, if it wasn't. But our people actually sewed that into their story cloths, that yellow rain came from the sky. And so that's kind of one way that they documented the use of Agent Orange during the Vietnam War. So,
Which leads us to our next question. What was the secret war?
it's a secret. I don't know. So the Secret War, my father fought in it. Her father fought in it. What happened was during the Vietnam War, the U.S. was looking for a way to kind of slow down the supply chain to the Viet Cong, and Laos is a bordering country, and they recruited these jungle people to help with that, to help traverse the jungles of Laos, and try to help slow down that supply chain. And so the CIA recruited these mountain people and armed them and taught them how to fly planes. And one of their main missions was actually to help downed pilots get out of the jungle. And so there's stories of Vietnam veterans who they're downed, and all of a sudden this small Asian man comes out of the woods. They don't know if they're friend or foe, and then they lead him back to camp. And so the purpose of the Secret War was to help slow down that supply chain to the Viet Cong, and the Hmong people were were on the front lines of that to help fight that.
Why did the Hmong people agree to fight for the CIA?
Well, I think it's kind of almost like a personal thing, but yeah, also like a force thing, depending on who you talk to, which veteran you talk to. But essentially, they were fighting for democracy, right? Fighting for their land, fighting for freedom, right? We talked a little bit about how important family was, right? So as families, do, when they went to war, they gathered their families and they went to war, right? And sometimes, when you talk to some of the veterans, they don't even know why they went. They just said, hey, uncle told me to go and I went, right? But bottom line, it was really to, fight up their land, fight up democracy, and helping Americans, right?
How did the Hmong people get out of Laos?
So there are many different ways the Hmong people fled Laos. There was, I would say, where U.S. escorted some of the main top military folks out of the country. But the majority of the Hmong people, they really had to escape on their own. Right, they had to go through the jungles. They had to run away, and they had to, get to that Mekong River. Right, so if you talk to any Hmong, they'll have history around the Mekong River crossing over to Thailand. Right, so like I lost my grandparents and several family members because of that river. So that river, I would say, is filled with many tears. Right, because a lot of people lost a lot of people on that path. Right. And even, we joke around to this day. My mother-in-law said that my husband, right, as they were going through the woods, they left him behind because he was crying too much, right? So if you think about it, people are hunting you down, essentially, right? So they left him because he was crying too much, and they didn't want to, let the enemy know, essentially, their position. But my mother-in-law didn't have the heart to leave him behind, so they went back and got him. So there are many, many of those stories, right? When you talk to Hmong families around how they fled and came here to the United States.
When did the Hmong people first come to the United States?
I would say the first Hmong people who actually arrived in the States was probably 76, 77, somewhere around there. Somewhere around there. My parents came to Michigan in 1980. I'm first generation American. I have 19 siblings, and I'm the youngest and the only one born here in the United States. And in our culture, polygamy is allowed. So my dad had 2 wives, and I'm the youngest. I'm the second wife's youngest child. So my mom had 7 of us, and my stepmom had 12. And so there's 19 of us. And so a lot of people have that story about crossing the river, the treacherous journey through the jungles. The Thai government said, if you can make it, we'll take you, but we're not going to send people out to go get you. And so they were running for their lives through the jungles of Laos to get to the border of Thailand. So,
yeah, absolutely. So I'm also a firstborn American here as well. I have 6 siblings. And we have 7 children. We have 4 boys and 3 girls. So big families are normal in the Hmong community. I would say it's changed, right, with the second generation, third generations, right, in regards to family size as well. And so you don't really see that with second and third generation Hmong Americans. But for us, we still have very big families.
How many Hmong people are there in America today? And where are they mostly populated?
I have to get out my stats because I don't memorize these numbers very well. But yeah, so there's over 300,000 Hmong people in the United States. The largest population is in California, and then the second largest is in Minnesota, the Twin Cities. So Michigan, based on the last census, there's about 5,900 Hmong people here in Michigan. But it's so a little over 300,000. We're a growing number. So yeah.
I'd say probably maybe 1,500 here in the Lansing greater area, right? Yeah. Maybe around that count.
How did these early evacuees from Laos become U.S. citizens?
So they went from Laos to the refugee camps in Thailand, and then they had to wait their turn to come to the United States. When they came to the States, they could take the naturalization test just like any other person who came, but the Hmong people are the only ethnic group actually who had a naturalization act passed for them due to their service during the Vietnam War and in the Secret Laos War. So there was a small window that allowed anybody who could prove that they actually fought in the war to automatically become a citizen without having to take the naturalization test. And so that was I want to say in the early 2000s when there was like a 2-year window there, but even to this day, most Hmong people have been naturalized or born in the United States and are U.S. citizens. So,
Are Hmong people who fought for the CIA during the Secret War classified as U.S. veterans?
No, they're not. They are not classified, but they are what I would say the government deem as their official title is like a special guerrilla unit, right? That's kind of their code name back in the country of Laos, but they are not U.S. veterans.
How have other religions, especially Christianity, influenced or shaped the Hmong American story?
You take that one.
all right, this is gonna be my last question. I'm gonna have to go. But yeah, so I mean, I don't know. This one's kind of hits close to home. So, like I was saying earlier, we don't have a country to call our own, and what I tell my kids is we carry our culture and our religion on our backs, and I'm the only one of my so in our culture the sons carry on the religion and the ancestral connection. I'm the only one of my brothers who still practices the traditional religion. It's a mix of animism, which is ancestor worship, and shamanism, which we have shamans that help us heal the spirits. The problem is that it can be complicated if you don't take the time to learn it. And so because of that, it has turned a lot of the young generation off, because now you have to actually take your time and actually learn the religion, learn the culture. And whereas now there a lot of younger generation are converting to Christianity because the elders are passing away, the traditions are dying out because they haven't been passed down correctly. And so I kind of have a saying that we're going to end up being a Wikipedia page one day. We won't exist anymore. And I don't know how many generations that's going to take, but I don't even know as much as my dad does, and my kids are not going to know as much as I do. And eventually, we are going to be a Wikipedia page. So that's how I look at it. It is natural. That's kind of what happens. People come to the United States and they kind of assimilate and become American, and they lose touch of their original culture. So.
Great. All right, thank you, Joseph.
Thank you
Sorry, I
so
gotta take off.
much.
Thank you.
So for this next portion, I'll just ask Julie some audience questions.
All right, audience questions. Let's go for it.
Joseph touched a little bit upon it, but can you please tell us a little bit about different Hmong generations? Older generation versus today's younger kids?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, when we look at generations in our culture, there's actually generations within generations, right? And it's almost like a cohort, right? So we have, of course, the generational thing, kind of the way American looks at it, like, one generation born and then, the grandparents, right? And then the parents and the children. So that's kind of the generation piece. But within that, extremely important to know that there's also generations and cohorts of, I would say, kids that are grown up together, right? So you may have like a series of 5-year-olds that grow up together, and then another series of 5-year-olds that grow up. And we do talk about it a little bit different, that this generation is growing up to believe this or is doing this, and this generation is a little bit different. And that's how we speak about generations within our culture and how it's changed, right? All right. So, am I asking you questions?
Let me ask you one that's
Oh,
what
for
that was
me.
stated
All
for you.
right.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
how do today's Hmong children get along with their classmates? Are they bullied?
Okay. So I can't speak for, I would say, all Hmong children, but I can speak to my children, my 7 children. They are really, truly Americanized. My children are, right? So they understand the culture, they understand the American culture, and they also understand the Hmong culture. And it is sometimes sad because, like, I'll go to conferences and they'll be like, Mom, don't speak our language. It's embarrassing, right? But yeah, it's just normal, right? Just like every other American child that goes to school and the challenges that they face and so forth. But, my kids I know don't get bullied because they're Asian, right? But they may think about themselves. I know my younger kids, they don't think that they're Asians, they just think they're kids, right?
Those are some questions from the audience. So I don't know if you want to ask it to me.
Okay.
Both answer them.
Okay. Okay. How do Hmong people maintain their culture in the U.S.?
I think we spoke, or you and Joseph spoke a
Yeah.
little bit about it already, and it is a dying culture. I think, especially if we don't teach it to our younger kids. Just for example, I wasn't born here, but I can't even read or write in the Hmong language. I can only speak it, and I speak it with a Americanized accent. So that is something that probably won't go on much longer. But then again, it does depend on where you live too. I know in Minnesota, where there is a high Hmong population, there's a lot of resources up there, classes that teach kids how to speak, read, and write in Hmong. So they do have that resource and that outlet that allows them to still practice it though. But as far as just maintaining it, I think it has to start in the home. But even our parents, a lot of them don't even read or write in it too. So I think it's kind of hard to teach something that you don't have a grasp on it. So.
Yeah, that is true. As much as I speak Hmong at home, it's hard for my children to speak it. They can understand it. They can't really interpret some of the things that I'm trying to tell them, but they can't speak it. So that as much as we try to. I think the other thing about maintaining your culture in the U.S., I think the Hmong culture in general is it's community first, it's family first. So decisions are made as a family unit versus here in America, you think it's a very individualistic society where you make decisions on your own, right? You're 18, you make a decision, right? In our culture, it's still very family driven in regards to decisions, right? So when you think about me, I'm an adult, right? My career, where I'm going to move, where am I going to live, the house that I designed, the house that I built, all were family decisions that included my family and included my husband's family in the approval, I would say, for approving the land that we built our home on, right? The type of house that we build, is it a 1 level or 2 level? All those decisions are made like as a family unit, okay? Where I think traditionally in America, right? You and your husband or yourself, you kind of go in, you design and what you like and you prefer. Like I wanted the color red, right, for my house, right? My parents say no, it's no, so that type. And I don't think that is being carried on as well, right? Okay, you have another question for me? Okay. In Hmong religion, is there a god or gods or any type of higher being?
There isn't, but like we said earlier, there's the shaman. And he speaks to our ancestors. There's a ritual or a custom that he does, and whatever he does, he's able to speak to them and ask them how to heal and what to heal. So, but as far as a god, no, there isn't.
Yeah, there's I would say like a higher being, the kind of belief that there is a higher being, and we kind of conceptualize that as a higher being, but I don't think there's like a god that we worship.
Right. I think it's still just traditional
Yeah.
ancestors. So.
Very
And everyone
ancestral.
will worship their own individual ancestors too. So
All right. Do you have any more audience questions? You have another one? Okay.
there are no more.
Any submitted questions online? You have one more? Okay.
Well, I can ask you a question, Julie.
Sure.
How large are Hmong families?
Ooh, like I said, I have 7 kids. My mom had 7 kids. But yeah, so back in our country, right, it was like Joseph said, it's farming. We need big families. We need a farm. We need a till, right? And so for it's extremely important to have that. And so again, in the U.S., second, third generation, not as many children. Joe, I see you staring down a question. Okay.
I know in my family, my older sister, she's the only one with kids.
Ah.
And she's our generation too,
Yeah.
So, and she only has 2 boys and she doesn't want any more. So it's changed a lot, but I think it goes back to preference, but traditionally it was to help around the house.
Yep. So Joe, we're waiting for that question to come down. Uh-oh. Let's see, what's another one? Let's see if there's any other. What are etiquettes and hospitality customs? Okay, so if you come to a Hmong house, a traditional Hmong house, you will always be offered food, okay? Like if you don't want to stay for food, don't come visit. It's like you're going to get food.
All right. So Julie, this is a question from the audience. Can you teach us how to say some generic statements in your language?
Oh, that's so nice. Okay, class. Hello. Nya zhong. Nya zhong. Yeah. All right, what's another one?
Goodbye.
Goodbye. How do I say goodbye?
Mu zhong ka.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's a hard one. All right. One more time, team. All right, go for it.
Mu zhong ka.
Mu zhong ka. Mu zhong ka.
That literally translates to go well, like you go well, so you be well on your way.
Okay. All right. What's another one that's easy?
What about my name is Julie?
Oh, okay. So you're testing me here. Okay. Gu Lumbe. Gu Lumbe. Ya Julie. All right. That's kind of hard though. I'm just saying.
What about thank you?
Thank you. Oh, Wacho. Okay. Can everybody say that? Wacho. You guys are so good. Okay. One more time. Wacho. Good job. Look at that. We got an A
What
class
about you're
here.
welcome?
No, he's testing me. Okay. Okay, that's a hard one too. Okay. Jiwalita. All right. Okay. Jiwalita. Yes. I think you're saying it better than I am, actually.
Keep in mind, this is the Hmong white dialect, so I think it's different in the Green Hmong, though. How to say?
It is. Absolutely. All right, let's do dad. So dad is Z. Z. It's TXIV. I think that's how you spell it. Z. Yep.
Should we teach them some bad words? No.
Those are really easy to learn.
Those are probably the ones we want to know, right?
Okay, let's see if there's other questions here.
There's a question that was from the audience.
Yeah.
Do Hmong people ever go back to visit their hometown or country?
Definitely a personal preference, whether they go back or not. I know, like my parents, it's really a hard time for them to think about going back and visiting the country where they were persecuted. But yeah, recently, through, I would say the current times, there's a lot of people that do go back and visit family. There was a time period that didn't allow essentially Hmong to go back to our country to visit family. I think in current times it's a lot easier to go back and visit them, and then definitely a personal preference whether you go or not. Right.
I think first when my family came here in 1985, and we didn't go back until just a couple years ago in 2016, and it wasn't something that we didn't want to do. I think it probably just didn't work out, and the timing, and we just took that long just to make that decision to go back. But we were naturalized in 1997, so it wasn't that we couldn't go back to visit.
Yeah. All right. We have another question. Any
Not
more
from the
out there,
audience.
Joe? One more? All right. Cool.
Julie, what is the purpose of music in Hmong culture? Like, what is kutia?
Oh, Katsia is a form of I would say poetry that's sung, and for many different reasons. You know, just to express yourself, or for New Year celebrations, or for courting, or essentially also there's different lyrics that are sung or spoken for different reasons. And holidays and so forth. I can't do any of that poetry stuff. It's one of those things that I have on my bucket list to do and learn. But there is an art and science to it, I would say, and I just don't have that yet. So one of the things I want to do on my bucket list. Great.
Why don't you tell us, what are some prominent Hmong Americans,
Ah,
celebrities?
celebrities. You may know better than me. So do you know?
Well, I think the biggest one right now is Suni Lee,
Oh,
the U.S.
yes.
gymnast, gold
Did you guys
medalist
know
all around.
Suni Lee? She is Hmong.
Brenda Song from Disney Channel, Sweet Life of Zack and Cody.
Oh, yes. She's
a
an
celebrity.
actor as
Mhm.
well.
She's half Hmong. Her mom is
Yes.
Thai. Her dad is a Hmong.
Yes. I my kids love to watch that show. Yes.
And then I
There
guess
was a Hmong character in the Mulan show, the Hmong actor. So
that's right.
acting is kind of the thing around here for the youth. And Suni Lee, that was a big win for the Hmong community. I think we had a Hmong who was for what the is that Laos pageant,
Oh yes, the Miss Universe
Miss
pageant.
Universe
yeah,
pageant.
we had
So
a delegate from the
Yeah.
country of Laos, and she is Hmong. So
she's Hmong as well. So many of those people, and in politics as well. There's a lot of Hmong officials out there as well that are Hmong.
we've had Hmong people who are mayors, have served as mayors of U.S. cities, the city council, House, and the Senate too. So.
Yeah, House and Senate judges out there.
All right. This question is from the audience. It says, like the Chinese fighting style, like Kung Fu, does the Hmong people have something similar to Kung Fu or Taekwondo?
I wish that would be really cool. I think, but
But we don't. No.
we don't. We don't. Current day, I would say we don't. There are stories, right? Back in our kingdoms, the days of the kingdoms, right? Back in the area of China and the emperor stuff and so forth, and kings and stuff that we there's history, I would say, and oral history, majority of it, that we were great fighters, right? So you may go back in the historical books and see some of that, that we were great weapon makers and all of that stuff. But current day, no.
Does that say what are Hmong pageants about?
Oh,
I can't read that word.
what are Hmong pageants
Is that
about?
pageant? Is that
Is it the one for the delegate from Laos, or just in
quite
general?
sure. Yeah, are you just asking a
Just
general?
in general. Just in general. I think just like the American pageant in the U.S., there's Hmong pageant as well, across the different New Year celebrations, where they they dress in their attire, right, and they go up on stage and they compete for scholarships and so forth. So similar to American pageants, there's also Hmong pageants throughout the U.S. and actually throughout the different countries too, that are showcased.
I think it's just giving young Hmong women a platform to speak on the topics that they're passionate about. So,
That's right.
and also I think it's a way to practice customs too, traditions, continue to speak the Hmong language and wear the Hmong clothes.
Yes, absolutely. I typically only wear it once a year, and my mom wants me to wear more than that, but I have nowhere to go to wear it.
I think that's the honest truth for a lot of people. We only wear it during the traditional New Year, when you
Yeah.
get married, and when you die. I think those are the three events that
Yes.
you do wear it too. So
And you do wear, many people do still wear our traditional clothes, when they get married, right? That they don't wear the tux or, the suit or dresses. They wear the traditional clothes because it's the belief that they will go back and meet with their family, their loved ones. And so it's important that they are in their traditional clothes so that their relatives know who they are. All right, I think we're ready to wrap up here.
questions.
Any more questions from the audience? Okay. Yeah.
Just go ahead.
Yes.
So the question is, do you have any favorite Hmong traditions?
Um, eating, as you can probably tell. So eating is kind of the centerpiece of everything. And everybody comes together and kind of does a dish and then brings it together, or we make a dish together. And it's pretty much elaborate. It takes 4 or 5 hours, right, before a meal is prepared. And it's one of those things where you can't eat until, everybody's done with their meals. Although I go to the kitchen and sneak snacks all the time. But yeah, I think my biggest tradition is coming together as a family.
I think for me, it's the Hmong clothes still,
Ah,
I
yes.
think it's something that we only get so few times to wear in our lifetime. So I think that's something that I appreciate more. Definitely as I gotten older, as a kid, I don't think I wanted to wear it, It was that force to be worn
Forced
during
to be
Christmas. I
worn.
mean, not Christmas, but New Year mornings, so. But as I've gotten older, I do appreciate it a lot more. So
My kindergarten wore a traditional little Hmong hat to school for about half of the semester when he went to kindergarten. And then after that, he's like, Mom, nope, nobody else wears that. So I got pictures. My last question for the night: how does Hmong money look like? Okay, so back in our country, we use silver bars, okay, and silver coins, and that was kind of our currency, right? And so think about this. We talk about it a lot. Like, how many bars of silver were you, like your dowry, right? And it was like 4 bars or 5 bars or so forth. So if you translate it, bars maybe like $1,200, right? Or $1,000.
I think my dad says like 500.
500.
Yeah,
Okay. So that's kind of the currency translated, right? But we use silver money, silver bars, right, as our currency back home. All right, Joe, how did we do? Did we represent?
Thank you so much. So few of us have had an opportunity to ask Hmong people about their culture and their food, especially.
Oh, yes.
And you threw in a language lesson. So thank you very much. This is huge help. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Tyler. And Joseph, who had to go for another event, busy guy. This will help us immeasurably in publishing 100 questions and answers about Hmong Americans. A secret no more. There are no secrets, we could tell. We will be moving into the writing the answers and editing our work, and we will have it out later this year, and you'll certainly have a copy. And we hope that people who are looking for anything in the Bias Busters series will just look for it on Amazon. It's easy to find. Just look up Bias Busters. There we are. There are more than 20 guides about different groups. So let's thank our panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. You were awesome. Thank you.